Camila Torres opened her eyes to find herself in silk sheets that cost more than her monthly rent, staring at a ceiling painted with Renaissance frescoes. The room spun slightly as she sat up, her head pounding with a headache that felt like someone had taken a hammer to her skull. But it wasn't the luxury that made her heart race. It was the man standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the Chicago skyline. Adrian DeLuca turned to face her, his dark eyes assessing her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. He was devastatingly handsome in a dangerous way, the kind of man mothers warned their daughters about. When he spoke, his voice was smooth as whiskey, but she heard the steel beneath it. "You're awake. Good, we have a lot to discuss, Camila." The way he said her name, like he'd known her for years, sent a chill down her spine. She didn't recognize this place, didn't remember how she got here, and definitely didn't remember meeting this man who looked at her like she was both a puzzle and a possession. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day, and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Camila's fingers clutched the silk sheets as she tried to piece together the fragments of the previous night, but her memory was a blank slate after leaving her friend's birthday party at some trendy downtown bar. The last clear image she had was of laughing with Sarah, her best friend since college, and then nothing but darkness and the vague sensation of falling. Now she was here, in this opulent bedroom that screamed old money and new danger. Wearing a white button-down shirt that definitely wasn't hers and smelled faintly of expensive cologne. "Who are you?" Her voice came out scratchy and uncertain, and she hated how vulnerable she sounded. She forced herself to meet his gaze, even though everything in her body was screaming at her to look away from those penetrating dark eyes that seemed to see right through her. Adrian moved away from the window with the fluid grace of a predator, each step measured and deliberate. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with black hair styled in that effortlessly perfect way that probably took more effort than it appeared. His suit looked custom-tailored, fitting his athletic frame in a way that suggested both wealth and power. There was a small scar above his left eyebrow, a tiny imperfection that somehow made him more compelling rather than less. "I told you, Adrian DeLuca." He paused, studying her face as if searching for recognition. "You really don't remember anything, do you? Not the club, not our conversation, not what happened after." The way he said it sent alarm bells ringing through Camila's foggy brain. She swung her legs over the side of the bed, grateful to find she was still wearing her jeans from last night, even if they were now wrinkled and dusty. Her feet touched a carpet so plush it felt like walking on clouds, but the luxury only made her more uncomfortable. This wasn't her world. This was the kind of place she'd only seen in magazines, all marble and gold accents and artwork that probably cost more than she'd make in a lifetime. "I don't remember meeting you at all," she said, pushing herself to stand even though her legs felt shaky. "Where am I? Where's my phone? I need to call my friend. She's probably worried sick." Adrian's expression shifted slightly, something that might have been amusement flickering across his features. He reached into his pocket and pulled out her phone, but when she moved to take it, he held it just out of reach. "Your friend Sarah already knows you're safe. I had my assistant text her from your phone last night." Camila's blood ran cold. "You went through my phone. What the hell gives you the right to do that?" Anger was pushing past the fear now, sharpening her senses and clearing some of the fog from her mind. "I don't care how nice this place is or how expensive your suit is. You can't just kidnap people and go through their personal property." To her surprise, Adrian actually smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Kidnap is a strong word. I prefer rescued. You were unconscious outside my club, Camila, face down in an alley, bleeding from a cut on your forehead." He gestured to her head, and she instinctively reached up to find a small bandage on her temple that she hadn't noticed before. "I brought you here because taking you to a hospital would have raised questions I thought you might not want to answer." "What kind of questions?" Camila demanded, her mind racing. She touched the bandage gingerly, feeling a dull throb of pain beneath it. "And what do you mean, your club? What club?" "Obsidian. Perhaps you've heard of it." The way he said it suggested she definitely should have heard of it. One of the more exclusive venues in Chicago. You don't just walk in off the street. You need connections, an invitation, the right kind of reputation. His eyes traveled over her slowly, appraisingly. You didn't strike me as someone who typically runs in those circles. Camila's mind was spinning. Obsidian. The name did ring a bell, but only because Sarah had mentioned it weeks ago as a place she'd been dying to get into. Some impossible-to-access nightclub where celebrities and Chicago's elite mingled behind velvet ropes and privacy screens. Sarah had been trying to get an invitation through one of her coworkers who supposedly knew someone who knew someone. But Camila had never been interested in that scene. She preferred quiet evenings with a book or small gatherings with close friends over loud music and crowds. I wasn't at your club, she said firmly. I was at Melody's on 5th Street, some little bar for my friend's birthday. I had 2 drinks, maybe 3, and then I was going to catch an Uber home. I would never go to a place like Obsidian. That's not my style. Adrian's expression hardened slightly, his jaw tightening in a way that made him look even more dangerous. And yet I found you outside my establishment at 2 in the morning, unconscious and alone. No purse, no jacket, just you and your phone. He moved closer, and she could smell his cologne now, something woody and expensive that made her head swim. Someone either dumped you there, or you were running from something and collapsed. Either way, Camila Torres, you were at Obsidian last night, whether you remember it or not. The certainty in his voice made doubt creep into her mind. Could she have blacked out? Had someone drugged her drink at Melody's? The timeline in her head was fuzzy, full of gaps that refused to fill in no matter how hard she concentrated. She remembered laughing with Sarah, remembered the birthday cake shaped like a martini glass, remembered the feel of the bass from the bar's sound system vibrating through her chest. After that, just darkness. I need to go, she said, looking around for her shoes. She spotted them near the door, her worn Converse looking painfully out of place against the expensive decor. Thank you for helping me, I guess, but I should get home. People will be worried. Sit down, Camila. It wasn't quite a command, but there was steel in Adrian's voice that made her pause halfway to the door. We're not finished talking. You don't understand the situation you're in. The situation I'm in? She whirled on him, anger overriding caution. The situation I'm in is waking up in a stranger's bedroom with no memory of how I got here, and a man who's acting like he owns me. That's the situation I'm in. For a long moment, Adrian just looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. The cold calculation gave way to something that might have been respect, or perhaps just recognition that she wasn't going to be easily intimidated. He moved to a chair near the window and gestured for her to take the seat opposite him. Please, he said, and this time it sounded more like a genuine request than a demand. Give me 5 minutes to explain, and then if you want to leave, I'll have my driver take you anywhere you want to go. But you need to hear what I have to say, because I think you're in danger, and I think whatever happened to you last night wasn't an accident. Camila's heart was pounding so hard, she could hear it in her ears. Every instinct told her to grab her shoes and run, to get as far away from this man and his penthouse and his ominous warnings as possible. But curiosity, that dangerous human trait, made her hesitate. And beneath the fear, there was something else, a nagging feeling that he might be telling the truth. She moved to the chair and sat down, keeping her posture rigid and alert. 5 minutes, then I'm leaving. Adrian leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers in a gesture that seemed calculated to project calm authority. Obsidian isn't just a nightclub, Camila. It's a front, or rather, it's one legitimate business among several that I own. My family, the DeLucas, have been involved in Chicago's less visible economy for 3 generations. I won't insult your intelligence by pretending to be something I'm not. I'm what people politely call a businessman and what others less politely call a criminal. The bluntness of it caught her off guard. She'd suspected something wasn't right about this situation, but hearing him admit it so casually made it real in a way that turned her blood to ice. You're telling me you're in the Mafia. That's a rather outdated term, but essentially, yes. He watched her reaction carefully, gauging how she would respond. We prefer to think of ourselves as entrepreneurs, operating in markets that happen to be heavily regulated. But semantics aside, yes, I run an organization that exists outside the law in many respects. And you're just telling me this? Camila couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. Don't people like you usually kill people who know too much? A ghost of a smile played at the corners of Adrian's mouth. Only in the movies. In reality, we prefer to keep a much lower profile. I'm telling you because you need to understand the danger you're in. When I found you last night, you had this in your hand. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small USB drive, holding it up so she could see it. Do you recognize this? Camila stared at the drive, a cheap black plastic thing that could have come from any electronics store in the city. She had no memory of it at all. No, I've never seen it before. What's on it? That's what I'd like to know. It's encrypted. And my tech people are working on breaking into it, but whatever is on here, someone thought it was important enough to give to you or hide with you. He set the drive on the table between them. The question is, why you? Are you involved in something you haven't told me about? Do you work for someone who might be interested in my business operations? I'm a social worker, Camila said, her voice rising with incredulity. I help place foster kids with families. The most exciting thing that happens in my day is paperwork disputes with the county office. I have absolutely no reason to be involved with anything related to your world. Adrian studied her for a long moment, and she had the uncomfortable feeling that he was taking her apart with his eyes, analyzing every micro-expression and word choice to determine if she was lying. Finally, he nodded slowly. I believe you, which makes this situation even more complicated. Why? Camilla's hands were shaking now, and she clasped them together in her lap to stop the tremor. If I'm not involved, then why would someone give me that drive, or whatever happened? Because someone is using you as a courier, or trying to set me up, or possibly both. Adrian's expression had gone cold again, all business. There are several organizations in Chicago that would love to see me go down, either to law enforcement or to a bullet. If someone planted that drive on you and made sure you ended up outside my club, they might be trying to create a connection between us, something that could be used against me later. The implications of what he was saying hit Camila like a physical blow. You think someone intentionally drugged me and left me there? Used me as some kind of pawn in whatever gang war you've got going on? It's possible. It's also possible that you stumbled into something you weren't meant to see, and someone decided to tie up a loose end by removing your memory of it and making sure the evidence ended up in my hands. He leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. Either way, Camila, you're in this now whether you want to be or not. And if whoever did this thinks you might remember something or might have seen something, they're going to come looking for you. Camila felt her chest tighten with panic. This couldn't be happening. 24 hours ago, her biggest concern had been whether she should adopt the senior cat she'd been fostering, or wait until she had a bigger apartment. Now she was sitting across from a Mafia boss, who was telling her that her life might be in danger because of something she couldn't even remember happening. This is insane, she whispered. I can't deal with this. I have work on Monday. I have a life. I can't just disappear because of some conspiracy theory about a USB drive. I'm not asking you to disappear. I'm asking you to be smart. Adrian's voice had softened slightly, though the intensity never left his eyes. Stay here for a few days while my people figure out what's on that drive and who might be behind this. Let me protect you until we know what we're dealing with. Stay here? In your penthouse? With you? Camila shook her head emphatically. Absolutely not. I don't know you. For all I know, you're the one behind whatever happened to me, and this is all some elaborate lie to keep me here. If I wanted to keep you here against your will, Camila, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You'd be locked in a much less comfortable room. The casual way he said it should have been terrifying, but there was something in his tone that suggested he was being honest rather than threatening. I'm offering you protection because I think you need it and because whatever is happening involves my organization, which means I have a vested interest in solving it. Or you want to make sure I don't go to the police. Camila stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is crazy, all of it. I'm leaving. I'm going to go to the police and tell them everything, and then I'm going to go home and forget this entire nightmare happened. Adrian stood as well, and for a moment they faced each other across the expensive carpet, two people from completely different worlds, caught in a situation neither had anticipated. You can do that, he said quietly, but ask yourself this. If someone wanted to use you to get to me, what's stopping them from trying again? And if you go to the police, what exactly will you tell them? That you woke up in a strange bed with no memory? That a man you can't identify may or may not have drugged you? That you found yourself outside a nightclub you don't remember going to? Every word hit home because they were all questions she'd already been asking herself. What could she tell the police that would sound even remotely credible? She had no evidence of a crime. No clear memory of being assaulted. Nothing but a bandaged cut on her forehead and a growing sense that she'd stumbled into something far over her head. I have to try, she said. But even to her own ears, it sounded uncertain. Adrian reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, holding it out to her. Take this. If you change your mind or if anything strange happens, anything at all that makes you feel unsafe, call that number. Day or night, someone will answer, and I'll make sure you're protected. Camila took the card reluctantly, noting the embossed lettering and the weight of the expensive cardstock. Just a phone number, no name or business listed. She slipped it into her jeans pocket and moved toward the door to retrieve her shoes. Wait, Adrian said, and something in his voice made her pause. At least let me have my driver take you home. You shouldn't be wandering around the city alone, not until we know more about what happened. It was a reasonable request, and Camila was too tired and overwhelmed to argue. She nodded curtly and slipped on her shoes, very aware that Adrian was watching her every move. He led her out of the bedroom and through the penthouse, and she tried not to gape at the sheer opulence surrounding her. Original artwork on the walls, sculptures that probably belonged in museums, and furniture that looked like it had been imported from European palaces. They took a private elevator down to an underground garage where a sleek black car was waiting, the kind with tinted windows and a shine that suggested it was washed daily. A man in a dark suit stood beside it, and Adrian spoke to him quietly in what sounded like Italian before opening the back door for Camila. Marco will take you wherever you need to go, Adrian said. He's discreet and trustworthy. You have my number if you need it. Camila slid into the leather seat, which was so comfortable it felt like sitting on a cloud. She wanted to say something, to demand more answers or make some kind of defiant statement, but her mind was too jumbled to form coherent thoughts. Instead, she just gave Adrian a long look, trying to reconcile the dangerous criminal he claimed to be with the man who had apparently rescued her and was now letting her walk away. Thank you, she said finally, though she wasn't entirely sure what she was thanking him for. For helping me, I guess. Even if this whole situation is completely insane. Adrian's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Be careful, Camila Torres. And remember, if you need help, call. I keep my word. The door closed, and the car pulled smoothly out of the garage, leaving Adrian standing alone in the shadows. Camila gave Marco her address, a modest apartment building in a decidedly unglamorous part of the city, and tried to process everything that had happened. Her phone was still in her pocket where Adrian had returned it, and she pulled it out to find dozens of missed calls and texts, mostly from Sarah. The most recent text, sent just an hour ago, read, "Okay, you said you were fine and needed to crash, but you better call me the second you wake up. What happened last night? You disappeared and then I got this weird text from your phone saying you went home with some guy?" Camila's fingers trembled as she pulled up Sarah's number and hit call. Her friend answered on the first ring, her voice tight with worry and anger. "Camila Maria Torres, where the hell have you been? I've been losing my mind. You never just leave like that, and that text didn't sound anything like you, and I was this close to calling the police." "Sarah, Camila's voice caught in her throat, and suddenly she was fighting back tears. The fear and confusion and sheer overwhelm of the past hour came crashing down on her all at once. "Something happened. I don't really know what, but I think I might be in trouble." "Where are you? Are you safe?" Sarah's anger immediately transformed into protective concern. "Do you need me to come get you? I'm in a car heading home, a driver. It's complicated." Camila glanced at Marco, who was studiously keeping his eyes on the road, giving her the illusion of privacy. "Can you come over? I need to talk to someone about this, and you're the only person I trust right now." "I'm already grabbing my keys. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Sarah paused, and Camila could hear the fear beneath the determination in her voice. "Cam, you're scaring me. What happened?" "I don't know," Camila admitted, watching the city slide past through the tinted windows. That's the problem. I don't remember, Sarah. I don't remember anything after leaving Melody's last night. The rest of the drive passed in a blur of Sarah's worried questions and Camilla's inadequate answers. By the time Marco pulled up in front of her building, a utilitarian concrete structure that had seen better days, Camila felt wrung out and exhausted. Marco got out and opened her door with professional courtesy, then handed her a small piece of paper with another phone number written on it. If you need a ride anywhere, miss, call this number. Mr. DeLuca has instructed me to be available to you at any time. His voice was surprisingly gentle for someone who looked like he could break bones without breaking a sweat. Camila took the number, adding it to the growing collection of contact information from Adrian's world that she was accumulating. Thank you, Marco. She trudged up the 3 flights of stairs to her apartment, each step feeling like a monumental effort. Her head was pounding again, and she couldn't tell if it was from whatever had happened to her last night or from the stress of this morning's revelations. She'd just managed to unlock her door when she heard footsteps thundering up the stairs, and Sarah appeared, slightly out of breath but moving with purpose. Oh, thank God, Sarah breathed, pulling Camila into a fierce hug. You look terrible. No offense, but you look like you've been through hell. None taken because I think I might have been. Camila let herself be pulled into her apartment, grateful for the familiar surroundings and the comforting presence of her best friend. Her apartment was tiny, just a studio with a kitchen alcove and a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. But it was hers, and it was safe, and it was blessedly free of dangerous Mafia bosses and mysterious USB drives. Sarah guided her to the worn couch that Camila had rescued from a curb 3 years ago and had been meaning to replace ever since. Okay, start from the beginning. What do you remember about last night? Camila took a deep breath and began to tell the story, starting with her last clear memory at Melody's and ending with Marco dropping her off. She left nothing out, not the penthouse or Adrian's confession about his criminal activities, or the USB drive, or his warnings about danger. Sarah listened without interrupting, her expression growing more alarmed with each detail. When Camila finally finished, Sarah was silent for a long moment, processing. Then she said, "We need to go to the police, right now. This is way beyond what we can handle on our own." And tell them what? Camila echoed Adrian's earlier point, hating that he'd been right. I have no proof of anything. I don't even know for sure that I was drugged. Just that I can't remember several hours. The hospital would have to do blood work, and whatever was in my system is probably already metabolized by now. So what? You're just going to pretend this didn't happen? Sarah's voice rose with frustration. Cam, a Mafia boss told you that you're in danger. A literal organized crime figure said someone might come after you. You can't just go back to work on Monday and hope this blows over. I don't know what I'm going to do, Camila admitted, rubbing her temples. I just know that I feel completely lost right now. Nothing about this makes sense. Why would anyone target me? I'm nobody. I have no connections to that world, no access to anything valuable. It has to be some kind of mistake. Sarah moved closer and took Camila's hands in hers, her grip warm and grounding. Maybe it is a mistake, but mistakes can still be dangerous. Will you at least promise me you'll be careful? No walking alone at night. No going places by yourself. Keep your phone charged and on you at all times. I promise, Camila said, squeezing her friend's hands. And Sarah, I'm sorry I scared you. I never meant to disappear like that. It's not your fault. Sarah's expression softened. Whatever happened, it wasn't your fault. But we need to figure this out, and we need to keep you safe while we do. They spent the rest of the afternoon trying to piece together the missing hours from the previous night. Sarah described how Camila had been perfectly normal at the party, laughing and chatting and seeming to enjoy herself despite her usual introversion at large gatherings. Around 11, Camila had mentioned feeling tired and said she was going to head out. Sarah had offered to share an Uber, but Camila had insisted she was fine and had her own ride coming. That's the last time I saw you, Sarah said, her voice thick with guilt. I should have made sure you got in the car. I should have watched you leave. You couldn't have known something would happen, Camila said, even as her mind raced. If she'd ordered an Uber, where had it taken her? She pulled up the app on her phone and checked her ride history. Sure enough, there was a trip scheduled for 11:15 the previous night, from Melody's to her apartment. According to the app, the ride had been completed and she'd rated it 5 stars. I took an Uber home, she said slowly, showing Sarah the phone. It says I got dropped off here at 11:40, so how did I end up at Obsidian several hours later? Sarah leaned over to look at the screen, her brow furrowed. Maybe you went out again. Or maybe someone used your phone to fake the trip completion and you never actually made it home. Camila tried to think back, to find any scrap of memory from those lost hours, but there was nothing but a frustrating blank. It was like a section of her life had been completely erased, leaving only confusion and fear in its wake. She got up and moved to the small window that overlooked the street, watching the normal Saturday afternoon activity below. People walking dogs, kids playing basketball in the parking lot across the street, a couple arguing outside the bodega on the corner. Ordinary life, the kind she'd taken for granted until today. I need to know what happened, she said quietly. I can't just live with this gap in my memory. And if Adrian is right, if someone really is targeting me, I need to know why. So what are you going to do? Sarah asked, coming to stand beside her at the window. Camila pulled out the business card Adrian had given her, studying the embossed numbers. I'm going to call him, not today, but soon. He said his people are trying to crack the encryption on that USB drive. Maybe whatever is on there will explain all of this. You're going to trust a criminal to give you answers. Sarah sounded skeptical, and Camila couldn't blame her. I don't know if I trust him, Camila admitted, but right now he's the only one who seems to know anything about what happened to me. And as crazy as it sounds, I think he was telling the truth when he said he'd protect me. Sarah was quiet for a moment, then sighed. Okay, but I'm going to be checking in on you constantly. And if anything even slightly weird happens, we're going to the police, mob or no mob. They ordered takeout and spent the evening watching mindless television, both of them pretending things were normal, even though they clearly weren't. Sarah insisted on staying the night, setting up camp on the couch with a spare pillow and blanket. And Camila was grateful for the company. She wasn't sure she could have faced sleeping alone after everything that had happened. But when she finally crawled into her own bed, exhaustion pulling her toward sleep, the dreams came. Fractured images that might have been memories or might have been her traumatized brain trying to fill in the gaps. She saw flashing lights and heard music so loud it vibrated in her chest. She felt hands on her arms, pulling her through a crowd. She saw a face she couldn't quite make out, heard a voice saying something urgent that she couldn't understand, and through it all, a sense of overwhelming fear, of knowing she was in terrible danger but being unable to do anything about it. She woke up gasping, her heart racing and her sheets soaked with sweat. The room was dark except for the faint glow of the streetlight outside her window, and for a disoriented moment she didn't know where she was. Then reality came crashing back, and she remembered. Her apartment, Sarah sleeping on the couch. The mess her life had become in the space of 24 hours. Camila reached for her phone to check the time and found several missed calls from an unknown number. Her heart rate, which had just started to slow down, spiked again. She unlocked the phone with shaking fingers and saw that the same number had called 3 times between 2 and 3 in the morning, just an hour ago. There were no voicemails, no texts, just the calls themselves. She was still staring at the screen when the phone rang again, the same unknown number lighting up the display. Camila's finger hovered over the decline button, but something made her answer instead. Hello? Her voice was barely a whisper, conscious of not waking Sarah. For a moment, there was only silence on the other end, and she thought maybe it was a robocall or a wrong number. Then a voice spoke, electronically distorted to sound inhuman, the kind of effect she'd only heard in movies. You shouldn't have survived last night, Camila. That was a mistake we intend to correct. The line went dead. Camila sat frozen in her bed, the phone still pressed to her ear, her entire body gone cold with terror. The voice had been wrong, unnatural, but the threat had been crystal clear. Someone wanted her dead. Someone had tried to kill her last night and failed, and now they were calling to tell her they were going to try again. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone as she pulled up Adrian's number. He'd said to call if anything happened, if she felt unsafe. This definitely qualified. The phone rang twice before an alert male voice answered. Miss Torres, what's wrong? Not Adrian, but someone who clearly knew who she was and had been instructed to expect her call. "Someone just called me," Camila managed to get out, her voice trembling. "They said I shouldn't have survived last night. They threatened me." "Stay where you are. Don't open the door for anyone. Mr. DeLuca is sending people to you now. They'll be there in 10 minutes. The voice was calm and professional, the kind of competence that came from handling emergencies regularly. "Is anyone with you?" "My friend Sarah. She's asleep on the couch." "Good. Wake her up and both of you stay away from the windows. Do not leave your apartment under any circumstances until our people arrive. They'll identify themselves with a code phrase, Violet Rose. Don't open the door unless they say those exact words." The call ended, and Camila sat there for a moment trying to process what was happening. This was real. This was actually happening. Someone was threatening her life, and she was about to have mob enforcers, or bodyguards, or whatever they were called, show up at her apartment in the middle of the night. "Sarah," she called out, her voice higher pitched than she'd intended. "Sarah, wake up. We have a problem." Sarah jerked awake instantly, her social worker instincts honed from years of crisis calls in the middle of the night. "What is it? What's wrong?" Camila told her about the call in quick, clipped sentences, and watched Sarah's face go through a rapid series of expressions, shock to fear to determination. To her credit, Sarah didn't waste time arguing or questioning the decision to call Adrian's people. She just nodded and moved away from the window, pulling Camila with her into the small alcove that served as a kitchen. "We're going to be okay," Sarah said firmly, though her eyes betrayed her fear. "They're sending help. We just have to stay calm and wait." The next 10 minutes felt like hours. Every sound from the hallway made them both jump. Every car that drove past on the street below made Camila's heart race. She kept replaying that distorted voice in her mind, the cold certainty with which it had pronounced her death sentence. You shouldn't have survived last night. What had happened? Had she witnessed something? Had she been given something? The USB drive, it had to be connected to that somehow. Finally, there was a firm knock on the door. Camila and Sarah looked at each other, neither moving. "Miss Torres," a deep voice called through the door. "Violet Rose, Mr. DeLuca sent us." Camila moved to the door on shaky legs and peered through the peephole. 3 men stood in the hallway, all wearing dark suits and serious expressions. They looked like they could handle themselves in a fight, but they didn't look overtly threatening. One of them held up a phone, showing what appeared to be a text conversation with Adrian. She unlocked the door and let them in, feeling surreal about the entire situation. These were criminals, probably, people who worked for a mob boss, and she was inviting them into her home. But they were also the only thing standing between her and whoever had made that threatening call. The lead man, who had silver hair despite appearing to be only in his 40s, gave her a quick but thorough assessment. "I'm Vincent. These are my associates, Marcus and Leo. Mr. DeLuca has instructed us to secure this location and then transport you both to a safe house. We need to move quickly." "A safe house?" Sarah spoke up for the first time. "Look, I appreciate the help, but Camila and I aren't going anywhere until we understand what's going on. We're not just going to disappear into some mob protection program." Vincent's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes suggested approval at Sarah's backbone. "I understand your concern, miss, but Miss Torres received a direct threat less than 30 minutes ago, and we have reason to believe the people behind it have considerable resources. This apartment is not secure. Your locks are standard residential grade, your windows face the street, and you're only 3 floors up. Anyone with basic breaking and entering skills could get to you." The blunt assessment sent a chill through Camila. She'd never thought of her apartment as particularly vulnerable before. It was just home, a place to sleep and eat and live her quiet life. Now Vincent was making it sound like a death trap. "How long would we have to stay at this safe house?" Camila asked. "Until we neutralize the threat or determine it's safe for you to return to your normal life." Vincent pulled out his phone and showed her a photo of a modest house in what looked like a suburban neighborhood. "It's comfortable, secure, and staffed with people who will keep you safe. Mr. DeLuca will meet you there and explain the situation more fully." Camila looked at Sarah, who gave a slight nod. They didn't really have a choice, and they both knew it. "Okay. Let us pack some things." 5 minutes, Vincent said. Essentials only. Clothes for a few days, medications, important documents. Anything else can be retrieved later if needed. They moved quickly, Camila throwing clothes into a duffel bag, while Sarah gathered her own things from the couch area. Camila grabbed her laptop, her work files, a framed photo of her parents who had passed away when she was in college. The mundane act of packing felt bizarre, given the circumstances. Like she was getting ready for a vacation instead of going into hiding from people who wanted to kill her. Marcus and Leo had moved to the windows, watching the street below with the alert stillness of trained guards. Vincent stood by the door, occasionally speaking quietly into a phone. The whole operation had a military precision to it that was both reassuring and terrifying. "Clear," Marcus said from the window. "No suspicious vehicles, no one watching the building. Let's move." Vincent opened the door and checked the hallway before gesturing for them to follow. They descended the stairs quickly, Vincent in the lead and Marcus bringing up the rear, with Camila and Sarah sandwiched protectively in the middle. Leo had disappeared, presumably to bring the car around. The vehicle waiting outside was a large black SUV with tinted windows, the kind that screamed either government official or organized crime. Camila had a hysterical thought that her neighbors were going to have a field day with this, but she supposed that was the least of her worries right now. They were ushered into the back seat, Vincent taking the passenger seat while Marcus drove, and Leo followed in a second vehicle. As they pulled away from her building, Camila watched her apartment building disappear in the rearview mirror and felt like she was leaving her entire life behind. Just yesterday morning, she'd woken up in her own bed, planning to spend the weekend catching up on paperwork and maybe finally finishing the novel she'd been reading for 3 months. Now she was fleeing into the night with mob protection, running from enemies she couldn't name who wanted her dead for reasons she didn't understand. Sarah reached over and squeezed her hand, a silent gesture of support that meant everything in that moment. Whatever happened next, at least she wasn't facing it alone. The drive took them out of the city and into the suburbs, through neighborhoods that got progressively quieter and more upscale. Finally, they turned onto a tree-lined street that looked like it had been pulled from a television show about perfect American families. The houses were large but not ostentatious, with manicured lawns and 2 car garages. The SUV pulled into the driveway of a colonial-style house with blue shutters, and Camila could see lights on inside. Vincent got out first, scanning the area before opening their door. "Welcome to your temporary home. It's not the Ritz, but it's secure and comfortable. Mr. DeLuca is already inside, waiting." They were led through a side door into a mudroom and then into a surprisingly cozy kitchen. The house had the feel of a place that was lived in, rather than just staged, with real cooking supplies in the kitchen and books on the shelves visible in the adjoining living room. Adrian stood by the kitchen counter, dressed more casually than before in dark jeans and a black sweater, but somehow still managing to look dangerous and in control. "Camila, Miss Walker. I'm sorry we had to meet again under these circumstances." His eyes lingered on Camila, and she thought she saw genuine concern there, though it was hard to tell with a man who clearly kept his emotions carefully controlled. "Vincent briefed me on the call. Do you still have your phone?" Camila pulled it out and handed it to him. Watching as he examined the call log, he frowned, then handed the phone to Vincent. "Run the number. I want to know who called her and how they got this number." "It could have been anyone," Camila said, her voice sounding small in the bright kitchen. "My number isn't exactly secret. I give it out for work all the time." "Maybe, but the timing is suspicious. Someone threatened you less than 48 hours after you woke up in my penthouse. That's not a coincidence." Adrian gestured toward the living room. "Please sit down. We need to talk. And this time, I need you to tell me everything you know, even things that might not seem important." They moved into the living room, a comfortable space with overstuffed couches and a fireplace that was currently unlit. Sarah stayed close to Camila, her protective instincts in full force. Vincent stationed himself by the front door while Marcus and Leo disappeared to presumably check the rest of the house. Adrian sat across from them, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, his dark eyes intense. "My tech team managed to partially decrypt the USB drive. What they found is concerning. It contains financial records, transaction logs, routing numbers for offshore accounts. Someone has been compiling evidence of money laundering operations across multiple organizations in Chicago. mine included. Camila felt her stomach drop. You think someone was trying to use me to give you that evidence? To implicate you? Possibly. Or they were trying to ensure the evidence survived by hiding it with someone who has no connection to our world. If something happened to them, you'd be a failsafe, someone who would eventually discover the drive and potentially take it to the authorities. Adrian paused, his jaw tightening. There's a third possibility. You were never supposed to survive with that drive. You were supposed to die, and the drive was supposed to be found with your body, creating a connection between you and my organization that law enforcement would investigate. Oh my God, Sarah breathed. They were going to frame her death on you? Use her as bait to bring you down? That's one theory, but here's what concerns me most. Adrian pulled out a tablet and brought up an image, turning it to face them. This is from security footage outside Obsidian 2 nights ago. Does any of this look familiar? Camila leaned forward to study the grainy black and white footage. It showed the alley behind the club, lit by a single overhead light. She could see a figure, small and slight, stumbling into frame. The timestamp said 1:45 in the morning. The figure moved erratically, like they were drunk or injured or both, and then collapsed against the wall and slid to the ground. A few minutes later, the back door of the club opened and Adrian emerged, moving quickly to the fallen figure and kneeling beside them. That's you, Adrian said quietly. That's how I found you. And if you look here, he advanced the footage several minutes backward. You can see how you got there. The image showed the same alley, empty except for shadows. Then a car pulled in, moving fast, its headlights off. The back door opened and two someones, dragged the slight figure out and deposited it roughly against the wall before speeding away. The entire thing took less than 30 seconds. Camila felt bile rise in her throat. She'd been dumped like garbage, left to die or be found. It didn't matter which. The casual violence of it, the complete disregard for her humanity, made her feel sick and furious in equal measure. I want to see their faces, she said, her voice harder than she'd heard it before. Can you enhance the image? Can you see who was in that car? We're working on it, but the angle and quality aren't great. However, Adrian switched to a different image. We did get a partial plate. It comes back to a rental car company at O'Hare Airport. The car was rented 3 days ago using a fake ID and a prepaid credit card. Dead end, but it tells us something. Whoever did this planned ahead. This wasn't impulsive or sloppy. So what do we do now? Camila asked, feeling overwhelmed by the information. How do we find out who's behind this? We keep you safe while we investigate. Vincent and his team will be here at all times. The house is equipped with a security system that would make Fort Knox jealous. No one gets in without us knowing about it. Adrian's expression softened slightly. I know this isn't what you wanted. I know you didn't ask to be pulled into this world, but I promise you, Camila, I will find out who did this to you and why, and I will make sure they never have the chance to hurt you again. There was something in the way he said it, a fierce protectiveness that seemed to go beyond professional obligation, that made Camila's breath catch. She barely knew this man, and what she did know should have terrified her. He was a criminal, someone who lived outside the law and apparently had the resources to disappear people into safe houses and decrypt stolen financial records. But when he looked at her with those dark eyes full of intensity and something that might have been genuine care, she felt safer than she had since waking up in his penthouse. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. You could have just let me go. You could have washed your hands of this entire situation. Why go to all this trouble for someone you don't even know? Adrian was quiet for a long moment, and Camila thought he might not answer. Then he said, Because you're innocent. Because you were hurt and used as a pawn in someone else's game, and that's not something I can ignore. And because he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. When I found you in that alley, something in me recognized that you didn't belong in that darkness. You deserve better than to be collateral damage in a war you didn't sign up for. The room was very quiet after that, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Sarah cleared her throat, breaking the tension. So what's our situation here? Can we leave? Can we contact people? Do we have to check in or follow specific rules? You're not prisoners, Vincent spoke up from his position by the door. You're free to move around the house, use any of the facilities. There's food stocked in the kitchen, books and entertainment in the media room downstairs. We just ask that you don't go outside without an escort and that you clear any communication with others through us first. We need to maintain operational security. What about work? Camila asked, thinking of her caseload, the kids depending on her to show up and advocate for them. I have children in the system who need me. I can't just disappear for days or weeks without explanation. We'll handle it, Adrian said. I'll have my people contact your supervisor with a cover story, family emergency, something that will buy you time without raising suspicions. Your cases will be temporarily reassigned. I don't like lying to my boss, Camila said, even though she knew she didn't have much choice. And those kids, some of them have already been through so much disruption. They don't need another person disappearing from their lives. Adrian's expression shifted, something like respect flickering across his features. You really care about them, don't you? It's not just a job for you. Of course I care about them. They're children who've been failed by almost every adult in their lives. The least I can do is show up consistently and fight for them. Camila felt herself getting emotional and forced herself to take a breath, which is why I need to get back to my normal life as soon as possible. And we'll make that happen, Adrian promised. But first we keep you alive. Nothing else matters if you're dead. The bluntness of it was jarring, but Camila supposed that was the reality she was living in now. Someone wanted her dead, and until they figured out why and stopped the threat, her normal life was on hold. It was terrifying and infuriating and completely surreal. Vincent showed them to their rooms upstairs, 2 bedrooms side by side with a shared bathroom. The rooms were nicely furnished, nothing ostentatious but comfortable and clean. Camila's room had a queen bed with a thick comforter, a dresser, and a window that looked out onto the backyard. She could see Marcus standing in the shadows near the fence line, a dark figure keeping watch while they slept. Sarah came into her room after unpacking her small bag, sitting on the edge of Camila's bed with a worried expression. Are you okay? And I mean really okay, not just putting on a brave face, okay. Camila considered the question, taking inventory of her emotional state. She was terrified, yes, but there was also anger building beneath the fear. Anger at whoever had done this to her, anger at being used and violated and threatened. And beneath that, there was something else, a strange feeling of being drawn toward Adrian despite every logical reason to keep her distance. I don't know, she admitted. I feel like I'm in a movie or a dream or something. None of this feels real. But I'm managing, I think. Having you here helps. I'm not leaving you, Sarah said firmly. Whatever happens, we're in this together. Though I have to say, that Adrian guy is intense. The way he looks at you, it's like you're the only person in the room. Camila felt her cheeks warm. He's probably just concerned because I got dragged into his mess. Don't read anything into it. Sarah said with a knowing look. Sure, that's definitely all it is. It has nothing to do with the fact that he's gorgeous and dangerous and clearly fascinated by you. Sarah, the man is a criminal, a mobster. I work in social services. We couldn't be more wrong for each other if we tried. Even as she said it, Camila felt the protest was more for herself than for Sarah. I'm just saying stranger things have happened. And despite the whole organized crime thing, he seems genuinely invested in keeping you safe. That counts for something. Sarah stood and stretched. I'm going to try to get some sleep. You should too. Something tells me tomorrow is going to be another very long day. After Sarah left, Camila changed into pajamas and climbed into the unfamiliar bed. The house was quiet except for the occasional creak of settling wood and the distant sound of a car passing on the street. She picked up her phone, intending to check her email, then remembered that Vincent had taken it to trace the call. She felt oddly disconnected without it, like she'd lost a limb. She was just starting to drift off when there was a soft knock on her door. Come in, she called, expecting it to be Sarah. Instead, Adrian entered, carrying a phone that he held out to her. Vincent cleared it. The call came from a burner phone that's already been destroyed. No way to trace it back to the source, but your phone is clean, no tracking software or anything concerning. You can have it back. Thank you, Camila said, taking the phone and feeling that small piece of normalcy return. Adrian, can I ask you something? He paused at the door, turning back to face her. In the dim light from the hallway, he looked less like a dangerous mob boss and more like a man carrying heavy burdens. Of course. When you found me in that alley, why did you help? You said you brought me to your penthouse instead of calling an ambulance. That's a big risk for you, isn't it? Having a stranger in your home, someone who could potentially be a threat or a setup? Adrian moved further into the room, leaning against the dresser. It was a risk, he admitted. My head of security was furious with me for breaking protocol. But when I saw you lying there, vulnerable and hurt, I couldn't just leave you to the system. I've seen what happens to people who end up in emergency rooms with suspicious injuries and no memory. The police get involved, questions get asked, and sometimes the people asking those questions are the same ones who hurt you in the first place. You were protecting me even then, Camila said softly, before you knew anything about me or what had happened. Maybe I'm a fool, Adrian said, with a slight smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. My associates certainly think so, but I've spent my entire life in a world where people are commodities, where loyalty is bought and lives are currency. When I saw you, I saw someone who didn't belong in that darkness. I wanted to preserve that somehow, keep you safe from the ugliness that I deal with every day. Camila felt something shift between them in that moment, a recognition of seeing each other more clearly. You're not what I expected when I think of organized crime. And you're not what I expected when I found you in that alley. Adrian pushed off from the dresser, moving toward the door. Get some rest, Camila. Tomorrow we'll dig deeper into this mystery and hopefully get you some answers. He was almost out the door when Camila called after him. Adrian, thank you for everything. He paused, looking back at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Don't thank me yet. This is far from over. After he left, Camila lay in the darkness, her mind churning through everything that had happened. Somewhere out there, people wanted her dead. Somewhere in her lost memories was the key to understanding why. And somewhere in this strange new reality she'd been thrust into, she was starting to feel things for a man who represented everything she should be running from. She finally drifted into an uneasy sleep, her dreams filled with shadowy figures and distorted voices, and the memory of dark eyes watching her with unexpected tenderness. The next morning, Camila woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, and the smell of coffee drifting up from downstairs. For a blissful moment, she thought she was at a hotel or visiting friends, and then reality came crashing back. Safe house, mob protection, someone trying to kill her. She dragged herself out of bed and found Sarah already awake and dressed, sitting in the living room with a laptop balanced on her knees. Vincent stood in his usual position near the door, and through the window Camila could see Leo doing a perimeter check of the yard. Morning, Sarah said, looking up from the laptop. There's coffee in the kitchen, and someone stocked the fridge with actual food. I made eggs if you're hungry. Camila poured herself coffee and grabbed a plate of eggs, grateful for Sarah's tendency to take charge in a crisis. Adrian appeared as she was settling onto the couch, looking impossibly put together despite the early hour in another immaculate suit. We had a development overnight, he said without preamble. My tech team finished decrypting the drive. The financial records on there implicate not just my organization, but 3 other major operations in Chicago. This isn't about taking me down specifically. Someone is trying to expose the entire underground economy in this city. Who would do that? Camila asked. And why use me as the delivery method? That's what we're trying to figure out. The records are sophisticated, too detailed to be the work of an outsider. Whoever compiled this had inside access to multiple organizations. Adrian pulled out his tablet again, showing her spreadsheets full of numbers and transactions. What's interesting is the timing. These records cover the past 3 years, but there's a spike in activity about 6 months ago. Something changed in the landscape. Someone new entered the game, or someone existing made a power play. Could it be law enforcement? Sarah suggested. Maybe someone in the FBI or police who's been building a case? Possible, but unlikely. Law enforcement would handle this through official channels, not by dumping an unconscious woman with evidence in a back alley. Adrian frowned at the tablet. No, this feels more personal, like revenge or a power play by someone who knows our world intimately. Camila's phone buzzed, and she glanced down to see a text from an unknown number. Her blood went cold as she read the message. Did you really think hiding with DeLuca would save you? We know where you are, little social worker. We're always watching. Her hands started shaking, and Adrian was beside her in an instant, taking the phone and reading the message. His expression went from concern to absolutely furious in the space of a heartbeat. Vincent, initiate lockdown protocol. Marcus, Leo, full perimeter sweep now. Someone has compromised our location. His voice was hard as steel, all business. He turned to Camila and Sarah. Both of you, upstairs now. There's a panic room in the master bedroom closet. You're going to wait there until we clear the threat. What's happening? Camila asked, her voice rising with panic. How do they know where we are? I don't know, but we're going to find out. Move now. Adrian's tone left no room for argument. Sarah grabbed Camila's arm and pulled her toward the stairs. They could hear Vincent on the phone calling in additional security, his voice clipped and professional. Marcus and Leo had disappeared outside, presumably to search for whoever was watching the house. The panic room turned out to be a reinforced space behind a false wall in the closet, equipped with monitors showing camera feeds from around the property, a phone line, and enough supplies to wait out a siege. This is insane, Sarah whispered as they huddled in the small space, watching the monitors show Adrian and his men systematically searching the property. How did they find us so fast? Camila didn't have an answer. She watched Adrian on the screen, noting the way he moved with deadly purpose, a weapon now visible in his hand. This was the dangerous side of him, the part that had built an empire in the shadows. She should be terrified, but instead she felt a strange sense of safety knowing he was out there between her and whatever threat was lurking. 20 minutes passed with agonizing slowness. Then Adrian's voice came through the intercom in the panic room. All clear. We didn't find anyone on the property, but there was a GPS tracker on the undercarriage of one of our vehicles. They've been following us since we left your apartment. You can come out now. Camila and Sarah emerged from the closet to find Adrian waiting for them in the bedroom, his expression grim. We're moving you again. This location is compromised. Pack everything. We leave in 10 minutes. Where are we going? Camila asked, feeling exhausted by the constant upheaval. Somewhere more secure, somewhere they won't find you. Adrian's eyes softened as he looked at her. I'm sorry, Camila. I promised to keep you safe, and I've failed twice now. You haven't failed, she said, before she could stop herself. I'm still alive, aren't I? That's because of you and your people. This isn't your fault. Something passed between them in that moment, a connection that went beyond the circumstances throwing them together. Adrian reached out and gently touched the bandage on her forehead, his fingers feather-light. I won't let them hurt you again. That's a promise. The second safe house was nothing like the first. Instead of a suburban home, they were taken to a high-rise apartment building downtown, one of those luxury towers with doormen and keycard access, and probably residents who paid more in monthly maintenance fees than Camila made in a year. The apartment itself was on the 23rd floor, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. This is my personal apartment, Adrian explained as he gave them a quick tour. Not many people know about it. It's under a shell corporation's name, no connection to my public identity. You'll be safe here. We're staying with you? Sarah asked, raising an eyebrow. That seems like it might be crossing some professional boundaries. I don't trust anyone else with Camila's safety right now. Someone in my organization may have leaked your location to the people threatening you. Until I figure out who, I'm keeping you where I can personally guarantee your security. Adrian's tone made it clear this wasn't up for negotiation. The apartment had 3 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom and more luxury than Camila had ever experienced. Her room had a king-sized bed, a sitting area, and a bathroom with both a shower and a soaking tub that looked like it belonged in a spa. She set her duffel bag on the bed and just stared around, feeling completely out of her depth. A knock on the door frame made her turn to find Adrian watching her. I know this isn't ideal, having your life disrupted, being stuck here with me, but I will find whoever is behind this, Camila. And then you can go back to your normal life, back to helping those kids who need you. What if I don't want to go back? The words came out before Camila had really thought them through, and she saw Adrian's expression shift with surprise. I mean, obviously I want to go back to my work and my apartment and my life. But this whole situation, it's made me realize how small my world was. how safe and insulated I kept myself. Maybe there's something to be said for stepping outside your comfort zone, even if the circumstances are terrifying. Adrian moved into the room, closing the distance between them with careful steps. Your world isn't small, Camila. You spend your days fighting for children who can't fight for themselves. You see people at their worst and their best, and you choose compassion over judgment. That's not small, that's extraordinary. The sincerity in his voice made Camila's chest tighten. You barely know me. How can you be so sure about who I am? Because I've spent my entire life reading people, learning to see beneath the surface to who they really are. It's how I've survived in my world. And when I look at you, I see someone genuine and brave and so completely different from anyone I've ever known. He reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering on her cheek. You make me want to be better than what I am. Camila's breath caught. She should step back, should remind him that this was a bad idea, that they came from different worlds and nothing could ever work between them. But instead, she found herself leaning into his touch, her eyes locked on his. Adrian, this is crazy. Everything about this situation is completely insane. I know, he said softly, but maybe crazy is what we both need right now. He leaned down, and for a moment Camila thought he was going to kiss her, but at the last second, he seemed to catch himself, pulling back with visible effort. I should let you get settled. If you need anything, I'll be in my office down the hall. After he left, Camila sank onto the bed, her heart racing. What was happening to her? A week ago, her biggest concern had been whether to adopt a cat. Now she was hiding from assassins in a mafia boss's apartment and having moments with said mafia boss that felt dangerously close to romantic. Her therapist was going to have a field day with this when she finally got back to her normal life. If she got back to her normal life, the thought sent a chill through her. What if whoever was after her never stopped? What if this became her permanent reality, always looking over her shoulder, always running? She couldn't live like that. She wouldn't. Camila stood up with sudden determination and marched down the hall to Adrian's office. She knocked once and entered without waiting for permission. Adrian looked up from his desk, surprise flickering across his face. I want to help, Camila said firmly. I want to figure out what happened to me and why. I'm tired of being a victim, tired of being protected and hidden away. If someone is after me, I want to understand why, and I want to stop them. Adrian studied her for a long moment, and she could see him weighing her words. It could be dangerous, more dangerous than you've already experienced. I don't care. This is my life they're messing with. I deserve to have a say in how we handle it. Camila crossed her arms, trying to project confidence, even though inside she was terrified. A slow smile spread across Adrian's face, genuine and warm and transforming. All right, if you want to help, then we work together. Partners. Partners, Camila agreed, feeling a thrill at the word and what it might mean. The next few days fell into a strange routine. Mornings were spent going through the financial records from the USB drive, with Adrian explaining the various criminal enterprises they represented and Camila bringing her outside perspective to patterns he might miss. She learned about money laundering and offshore accounts, about how legitimate businesses could hide illegal activity, about the complex web of connections that made up Chicago's underground economy. She also learned about Adrian. He'd grown up in this world, the son of a mob boss who'd expected him to follow in his footsteps. He'd tried to go legitimate once, had gotten an MBA from Northwestern, and tried to build a clean business empire. But his family had pulled him back in, and now he straddled both worlds, the legitimate businessman and the criminal overlord. He talked about it matter-of-factly, without self-pity or justification, and Camila found herself respecting his honesty. In turn, she told him about her own life, about losing her parents in a car accident during her junior year of college, about deciding to become a social worker because she understood what it felt like to have your world turned upside down, about the kids she'd helped over the years, the success stories that made the heartbreaking cases worthwhile. Sarah watched their growing connection with a mixture of amusement and concern, pulling Camila aside one evening while Adrian was on a business call. Okay, I know I joked about this before, but I need to seriously check in with you. Are you developing feelings for him? Because Cam, he's in the mob. Like, Actual organized crime. That's not something you can just overlook because he's hot and protective. Camila wanted to deny it, to say that of course she wasn't developing feelings, that this was just Stockholm Syndrome or adrenaline or some other psychological explanation that made sense. But she'd never been good at lying to Sarah. I don't know what I'm feeling, she admitted. He's not what I expected. He's intelligent and thoughtful, and when he talks about his world, he doesn't glorify it or make excuses. He knows what he is, and he owns it. And the way he looks at me, Sarah, like I'm something precious and rare that he wants to protect. That's sweet and all, but what happens when this is over? When you go back to your real life and he goes back to his? Do you really think you can build something lasting with someone whose job involves breaking the law? Sarah's voice was gentle but firm. I don't know, Camila said again. Maybe I'm being naive. Maybe this is all just heightened emotions from a traumatic situation. But for right now, he makes me feel safe and seen and like I matter. Is it so wrong to hold on to that? Sarah pulled her into a hug. It's not wrong. Just be careful, okay? I don't want to see you get hurt worse than you already have been. That night, unable to sleep, Camila wandered out to the living room and found Adrian standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the city lights. He was wearing casual clothes for once, jeans and a t-shirt that somehow made him look more dangerous rather than less. Can't sleep? He asked without turning around. Too much on my mind. Camila joined him at the window, following his gaze out over the glittering cityscape. Do you ever wish you'd chosen a different life? That you'd stayed legitimate and walked away from all of this? Adrian was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then he said, Every day. But wishes don't change reality. I made my choices, some freely and some under pressure. And now I live with the consequences. The question is whether I can find meaning in this life or just survival. And have you found meaning? Camila turned to look at him, studying his profile in the reflected city lights. He turned to face her, and the intensity in his eyes stole her breath. I'm starting to. You've reminded me that there's more to life than power and control and winning at any cost. You see people, really see them. In a way I'd forgotten was possible. Adrian, she whispered, not sure what she was asking for but needing something to shift, to resolve between them. This time when he leaned down, he didn't pull back. His lips met hers in a kiss that started gentle and tentative. Asking permission with every touch, Camila responded without thinking, her hands coming up to rest on his chest, feeling his heart racing as fast as her own. The kiss deepened, became something urgent and necessary, like they were both drowning and had found air in each other. When they finally broke apart, Camila was breathless and dizzy and more certain than ever that she was in way over her head. This is probably a really bad idea, she said, but she didn't move away. Probably, Adrian agreed, resting his forehead against hers. But I've made worse decisions, and none of them ever felt this right. They stood there for a long moment, wrapped in each other, and Camila let herself imagine a future where this could work, where she could somehow reconcile her world of helping children and following rules with his world of shadows and calculated risks. It seemed impossible, but then again, a week ago, she would have said everything that had happened to her was impossible. The moment was shattered by Adrian's phone ringing. He pulled back with obvious reluctance and answered, his expression shifting from tender to all business in an instant. When? Show me. He moved to his laptop on the coffee table, and Camila followed, watching as he pulled up security footage from various cameras. What is it? Someone tried to access the building's service entrance 20 minutes ago, used a stolen keycard, and tried to bypass the security system. Adrian's face was grim as he watched the grainy footage. They knew which building, which entrance to target. Our location is compromised again. Fear washed over Camila in a cold wave. How? How do they keep finding me? Adrian's eyes narrowed as he studied the footage, then suddenly widened with realization. Your phone. It has to be your phone. Vincent cleared it, checked for tracking apps. But what if the tracker is built into the hardware itself? A physical chip that wouldn't show up in a software scan. He grabbed her phone from where she'd left it charging and examined it closely. I need to take this to my tech team, have them do a complete teardown. In the meantime, you don't use this phone at all. I'll get you a new one. A clean device that can't be traced. But if they've been tracking my phone this whole time, they know I've been with you. They know about the safe houses, about this apartment. Camila felt panic rising. What do? We go on the offensive. Adrian's expression hardened into something dangerous and determined. I'm tired of reacting, of always being one step behind. It's time to draw them out and end this. How? Sarah had emerged from her room, drawn by the commotion. How do you draw out an enemy you can't identify? By giving them what they want. Adrian looked at Camila, and she saw apology in his eyes. By making you visible again, vulnerable, by using you as bait. Absolutely not, Sarah said immediately. You are not using my best friend as bait for assassins, or whoever these people are. But Camila was thinking, her fear transforming into something else, something harder and more determined. What if I want to do it? What if this is the only way to end this and get my life back? Camila, no, Sarah protested. This is insane. You could get killed. I could get killed anyway, Camila countered. They've found me twice already. How long before they succeed? At least if we do this on our terms, we have some control over the situation. Adrian was watching her with a mixture of concern and respect. If we do this, we do it smart. Controlled environment, full security backup. Exit strategies planned. You're never actually in danger, just appear to be. But Camila, you need to understand, even with all those precautions, there's risk. Something could go wrong. I understand. Camila straightened her shoulders, trying to project confidence she didn't entirely feel. Tell me what the plan is. They spent the next hour mapping out a strategy. Adrian would leak information through his organization that Camila had decided to go back to her normal life, that she was returning to work at the county social services office. They'd make sure she was visible, easy to track, but Adrian's people would be watching every moment, ready to move in if there was any threat. When do we do this? Camila asked. Tomorrow. The sooner we act, the less time they have to plan something we can't anticipate. Adrian reached out and took her hand, his grip warm and strong. Are you sure about this? Because if you have any doubts at all, we find another way. Camila thought about her life before all this, about the kids depending on her, about the normalcy she'd taken for granted. She thought about Adrian and the connection growing between them, about Sarah's loyalty and the unlikely allies she'd found in Vincent and his team. Most of all, she thought about the distorted voice on the phone, telling her she shouldn't have survived. I'm sure, she said firmly. Let's end this. The next morning dawned cold and clear, a perfect October day in Chicago. Camila dressed in her normal work clothes, jeans and a sweater, trying to project the image of someone who'd decided life needed to return to normal. She had a new phone, completely clean and untraceable, but the old one was in her purse, still transmitting her location to whoever was tracking her. Vincent and his team had been working through the night, setting up surveillance and backup positions around her office building. Adrian had wanted to be one of the people on site, but Vincent had convinced him that he'd be too recognizable, too obvious. Instead, he'd be monitoring everything from a command center they'd set up in the apartment. You wear this at all times, Vincent said, handing Camila what looked like a simple necklace, but was actually a panic button and microphone. Anything goes wrong, any sense of danger at all, you press this and we come in fast. Don't try to be brave or handle it yourself. We're here to protect you. Sarah hugged her tightly before she left. Please be careful. Please come back in one piece. And maybe don't do anything stupid like try to catch bad guys yourself. I promise to let the professionals handle the actual catching, Camila said, trying for humor even though her heart was racing. Adrian walked her down to the parking garage where Marco was waiting with the car. For a moment, they just stood there, and Camila saw genuine fear in his eyes, fear for her. If anything happens to you, he said quietly, if I've miscalculated or put you in more danger than you're already in, I'll never forgive myself. Then make sure your plan works, Camila said, rising on her tiptoes to kiss him quickly. I'll see you in a few hours, and hopefully we'll have some answers. The drive to her office felt surreal, like she was playing a part in a movie rather than living her actual life. Marco dropped her off at the front entrance, and she walked in like it was any other workday, nodding to the security guard and heading up to the third floor where the social services department was housed. Her supervisor, Helen, looked up in surprise when Camila walked in. "Camila, I wasn't expecting you today. I got a message that you'd be out for a family emergency." "Change of plans," Camila said, forcing a smile. "Turned out to be less serious than I thought. I figured I should get back to work rather than use up all my emergency leave for nothing." Helen looked concerned but didn't push. "Well, we're glad to have you back. Your cases have been covered, but I'm sure the kids will be happy to see you. You know how they are about consistency." Camila settled into her cubicle, very aware of the weight of the hidden microphone around her neck and the phone in her purse broadcasting her location. She pulled up her files and tried to focus on work, on the reports that needed writing and the calls that needed making. But part of her attention was always on the door, on the windows, on every person who walked past her cubicle. Hours passed. Nothing happened. Lunchtime came, and Camila headed to the cafeteria in the basement, following the plan they'd laid out. More public exposure, more opportunities for whoever was tracking her to make a move. But the cafeteria was full of her coworkers eating lunch and gossiping about office politics. Nothing more threatening than that. She was starting to think this had been a mistake, that whoever was after her was too smart to fall for such an obvious trap, when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Time to talk, Camila. Come to the parking garage, level B, northwest corner. Come alone and right now, or a child dies." Camila's blood turned to ice. They'd somehow figured out that her work was with children, had found her weakness, and were exploiting it. She stood up abruptly, her lunch forgotten, and headed for the stairs that led to the parking garage. "Camila, talk to me," Vincent's voice came through the nearly invisible earpiece they'd given her. "Where are you going?" She couldn't respond without being overheard, but she pressed the panic button once as she pushed through the door to the stairwell. The team would know something was wrong, but she had to do this. If there was even a chance that a child was in danger, she couldn't wait for backup. The parking garage was dimly lit and mostly empty at this hour, most people still at lunch. Camila's footsteps echoed as she walked to the northwest corner, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She turned the corner and saw a figure standing beside a black sedan, hood up and face obscured. "That's far enough," a voice said, and Camila recognized it as the electronically distorted voice from the threatening call. The figure was holding a phone with some kind of voice-changing app. "You've been a lot more trouble than you were supposed to be, little social worker." "Who are you? What do you want from me?" Camila kept her hands visible, trying to appear non-threatening while her mind raced through possible escape routes. "I want you to stop poking into things that don't concern you. I want you to give that USB drive back so I can finish what I started." The figure moved closer, and Camila could see it was a woman, average height and build. Nothing remarkable except for the absolute cold determination in what she could see of her face. "You were supposed to die in that alley. The fact that you didn't has complicated everything. I don't have the drive. The police have it. If you want it, you're going to have to go through them." It was a lie, but maybe if this woman thought the evidence was already in law enforcement hands, she'd back off. The woman laughed, a harsh sound made even more unsettling by the electronic distortion. "Nice try. But I know exactly who has that drive, and it's not the police. Adrian DeLuca has it, and you've been staying with him. Very cozy arrangement you two have. Does he know that you're the reason his empire is about to crumble?" "I don't know what you're talking about," Camila tried to keep her voice steady. "I don't know anything about criminal enterprises or evidence or any of this. I was just a victim who got caught up in something I don't understand. You're either a very good actress or genuinely clueless." The woman tilted her head, studying Camila. "I almost feel bad about what happens next. Almost." She reached into her jacket, and Camila's survival instincts kicked in. She didn't wait to see if it was a weapon or more threats. She turned and ran, heading back toward the stairwell as fast as she could. Behind her, she heard the woman curse and give chase. Camila burst through the stairwell door and took the stairs 2 at a time, her breath coming in gasps. She could hear footsteps behind her, gaining ground. She was almost to the first floor when someone grabbed her arm and spun her around. But it wasn't the mysterious woman. It was Vincent, with Marcus and Leo right behind him, weapons drawn. "Where is she?" Vincent demanded. "Parking garage, northwest corner, wearing a black hoodie, about 5'6". Camila's words tumbled out. She threatened a child, told me to come alone. I'm sorry, I know I wasn't supposed to go without backup. But I couldn't risk a kid getting hurt. Vincent spoke into his radio, sending half his team to the garage, while he and Marcus stayed with Camila. We need to get you out of here now. The whole operation is blown. They hustled her out of the building and into a waiting SUV, and within minutes, they were speeding away from her office. Camila's hands were shaking with adrenaline as Vincent drove with Marcus riding shotgun and continuously checking the mirrors. Did you get her? Camila asked. Did your team catch her? Negative, came a voice through Vincent's radio. She made it to her vehicle and fled. We got a partial plate and a description. We're running it now. Camila closed her eyes, feeling like she'd failed. They'd had one chance to catch whoever was behind this, and she'd let them slip away. When they arrived back at Adrian's apartment, he was waiting by the elevator, his expression thunderous. What the hell were you thinking? He demanded the moment she stepped out. You were supposed to wait for backup. That was the entire point of having a team there. She threatened a child, Camila shot back, her fear transforming into anger. What was I supposed to do? Wait around while some innocent kid got hurt? There was no child. It was an obvious ploy to get you alone. Adrian ran his hands through his hair, clearly struggling to control his temper. You could have been killed, Camila. Shot or kidnapped or worse. Do you understand that? I understand that you wanted to use me as bait, and I agreed, and I did my part. I'm sorry it didn't work out exactly as planned, but at least now we know more about who's after me. It's a woman, someone with inside knowledge, someone who wants that USB drive badly enough to threaten violence. Camila moved past him into the apartment, done with being scolded for trying to protect children. Adrian followed her, and when she turned around, his expression had shifted from angry to something more complex. You're right. I'm sorry. I was scared, and I took it out on you. When I heard you'd gone into the garage alone, all I could think about was losing you before I'd had a chance to really know you. The confession took the wind out of Camila's anger. She sagged onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. I was terrified, but I couldn't let anyone get hurt because of me. Not a child, not anyone. Adrian sat beside her, close but not touching. That's who you are. That's what makes you different from people in my world. You put others first, even when it puts you at risk. Did your team at least get anything useful? Any leads on who this woman is? We're working on it. The partial plate came back to another rental, but we're pulling security footage from the rental agency. We'll find her, Camila, and when we do, this will be over. That night, Camila couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that figure in the parking garage, heard that distorted voice promising death. She got up and padded out to the kitchen for water, only to find Adrian already there, staring at his laptop screen. Can't sleep either, she asked, joining him at the kitchen island. Too much to think about. We got an ID on your parking garage, friend. He turned the laptop so she could see a driver's license photo of a woman in her 40s, blonde hair, sharp features. Her name is Diana Volkov. She worked as an accountant for several organizations in the city, including mine. She had access to all the financial records that ended up on that USB drive. She was the one who compiled the evidence, Camila said, piecing it together. But why? And why try to kill me? That's what doesn't make sense. If she wanted to expose us, why not just turn everything over to the FBI? Why this elaborate game with you as an unwitting courier? Adrian frowned at the screen. Unless she wasn't planning to go to the authorities at all? Then who was she planning to give the drive to? Camila asked. Adrian's expression changed as understanding dawned. Not to anyone. She was going to use it for blackmail. All these organizations, all this evidence of illegal activity, it's worth millions, maybe tens of millions, to keep that information from going public. She could have lived like a queen for the rest of her life. But something went wrong, Camila continued the thought. Maybe she got nervous, thought someone was on to her. So she put the drive with me for safekeeping, planning to retrieve it later. Except I ended up at your club. And you found me first. And now she's desperate to get it back before anyone figures out what she was planning. Adrian closed the laptop. The question is, who else knows about this? Is she working alone, or does she have partners? A noise from the living room made them both freeze. Adrian moved instantly, positioning himself between Camila and the sound, a gun appearing in his hand, from somewhere she hadn't seen him carrying it. They moved silently toward the living room, and what they found made Camila's heart stop. Diana Volkov was standing in the middle of the room, holding Sarah at gunpoint. "That was quite the chase you led my team on earlier," Adrian said calmly, though Camila could see the tension in his shoulders. "Breaking into my apartment, however, that's a bold move. Stupid, but bold." "I want the drive, and I want it now," Diana said, her voice cold and steady. No electronic distortion this time, just raw desperation. "You're going to give it to me, and then I'm going to walk out of here with your girlfriend's friend. If anyone follows me or tries to stop me, she dies." "Let Sarah go," Camila said, trying to keep her voice steady. "This is between you and me. She has nothing to do with any of this. She became involved the moment she decided to help you. Everyone close to you is leverage, little social worker. I thought I'd made that clear with my threats about the children." Diana's finger tightened on the trigger and Sarah whimpered. "The drive, now, or I start shooting." Adrian held up his free hand in a placating gesture. "The drive is in my office safe. I'll get it for you. Just stay calm and don't do anything you'll regret. The only thing I'll regret is not killing all of you the first time around. Move slowly and no tricks, or she dies." Diana's eyes were wild, the desperation of someone who'd run out of options and was willing to do anything to survive. Adrian moved carefully toward his office, and Camila realized with a start that he'd left his gun on the kitchen counter when he raised his hands. They were defenseless against Diana, who clearly had nothing left to lose. She had to do something, had to create an opportunity. "How did you even get in here?" Camila asked, trying to keep Diana talking, distracted. "This building has security, keycard access. I was an accountant for some very powerful people. You think I didn't learn a few tricks about bypassing security systems?" Diana laughed bitterly. "I've spent years watching criminals get rich, while I pushed papers and cooked books. I decided it was my turn. I was so careful, spent 3 years compiling that evidence, planning every detail. Then you had to stumble drunk into that alley and ruin everything." "I wasn't drunk. You drugged me." Camila was putting pieces together. "You were at the party, weren't you? At Melody's bar. You slipped something into my drink." "Very good. I knew you worked with DeLuca's organization's money, knew you were clean and wouldn't be suspected. The plan was to put the drive in your purse, let you go home, and then retrieve it a few days later when the heat died down. But you reacted badly to the drugs, started stumbling around outside the bar. I had to improvise, dumped you at Obsidian to make it look like you'd been partying at the club." Diana shook her head. "I never expected DeLuca to take you in, to protect you. That complicated everything." Adrian emerged from the office holding the small USB drive. "Here it is. Everything you wanted. Just let Sarah go, and you can leave." "I'm not stupid enough to trust you." Diana gestured with the gun toward the door. "We're all going downstairs together. You're going to give me your car keys, and then I'm leaving with both of them as insurance. Once I'm safely away, I'll drop them somewhere public and send you their location." "That's not going to work," Vincent's voice came from the hallway, and suddenly the apartment was flooded with Adrian's security team, weapons drawn and trained on Diana. "You're surrounded, Ms. Volkov. There's no way out of this that ends well for you. Put the gun down." For a moment, everything hung in the balance. Diana's finger was still on the trigger. Sarah was frozen in terror, and every gun in the room was pointed at someone. Then Diana's shoulders slumped in defeat, and she slowly lowered her weapon. "It's over," she said quietly. "It's all over." Vincent and his team moved in quickly, disarming Diana and securing her hands behind her back. Sarah stumbled away from her captor and into Camila's arms, both of them shaking with relief and residual fear. "It's okay," Camila whispered, holding her friend tight. "It's over now. You're safe." Adrian was on his phone, presumably calling in favors and arranging for Diana to disappear into whatever system mob bosses use for dealing with problems like this. When he finished the call, he came over to where Camila and Sarah stood, his expression a mixture of relief and residual anger. "Are you both all right?" he asked gently. "We're fine," Camila said, though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. Her hands were still shaking, and she couldn't quite believe this nightmare was finally ending. "What happens to her now?" "She'll be dealt with. That's all you need to know." Adrian's tone made it clear he wasn't going to elaborate, and Camila decided she was okay with that. Some things were better left unknown. The next few hours were a blur of debriefings and explanations. Diana had indeed been working alone, motivated purely by greed and resentment. She'd never intended to go to the authorities with the evidence she'd compiled. It was all about blackmail, about finally getting her piece of the criminal pie she'd helped others bake for so long. As dawn broke over Chicago, Camila found herself back on the couch where this had all begun days ago, exhausted but wired, unable to fully process that it was over. Adrian sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "So what happens now?" Camila asked. "Do I just go back to my life, pretend none of this happened?" "That depends," Adrian said carefully. "On whether you want to pretend none of this happened, on whether you want to forget about me." Camila turned to look at him, at this dangerous, complicated man who'd protected her and frustrated her and somehow stolen a piece of her heart in the process. "I don't think I could forget about you if I tried, but I also don't know how this works, Adrian. You're in a world I don't understand, doing things I can't condone. How do we reconcile that?" "Maybe we don't," Adrian said quietly. "Maybe we accept that we're from different worlds and will never fully understand each other's choices. But maybe that's okay. Maybe what matters is that we see each other clearly, flaws and complications and all, and choose to try anyway." "That's a very pretty speech for a mob boss," Camila said, with a slight smile. "I've been practicing." Adrian reached out and took her hand, his grip warm and sure. "I can't promise you easy, Camila. I can't promise that my life won't touch yours in ways that are uncomfortable or dangerous, but I can promise that I'll always protect you, always be honest with you, and always fight to keep you safe. I work with foster children and advocate for families in crisis. You run criminal enterprises. This is possibly the worst idea either of us has ever had." Camila squeezed his hand, feeling the connection between them strengthen. "So why does it feel like the rightest thing I've ever done?" "Because sometimes the unexpected things are the ones that change our lives the most." Adrian pulled her closer and she let herself lean into him, exhausted but content. "Stay, Camila. Not just for today, but for as long as you want. See where this goes. Take a chance on something that makes no sense on paper, but feels perfect in reality." Camila thought about her apartment, about her safe, predictable life that had been so thoroughly disrupted. She thought about the kids depending on her, about her responsibility to them. But she also thought about how alive she'd felt these past few days. How Adrian had challenged her to be brave and strong. How he'd seen past her quiet exterior to the fierce determination beneath. "Okay," she said finally, "but I have conditions. I keep my job, I keep my apartment, even if I'm not always there. And you respect that there are parts of my world that have to stay separate from yours. Some things are non-negotiable." "Agreed. And I have one condition of my own." Adrian tilted her face up to look at him. "You let me spoil you occasionally. Nice dinners, trips when you have time off, all the things you never let yourself have because you're too busy taking care of everyone else." "I think I can live with that," Camila said, smiling genuinely for the first time in days. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, Sarah was standing in the hallway, watching them with a knowing expression. "So I guess we're not going home right away?" Sarah asked, one eyebrow raised. "Not right away," Camila confirmed. "Is that okay?" "As long as there are no more gun-wielding accountants. I think I can adjust to luxury apartment living for a little while longer." Sarah moved to sit in the chair across from them. "But we're going to have a serious conversation later about your life choices, Cam. Dating a mobster wasn't on my bingo card for you this year." "It wasn't on mine either," Camila admitted. But then again, neither was waking up with no memory in a stranger's penthouse. "I think I'm done trying to predict my life." The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the room in shades of gold. Camila leaned against Adrian, feeling safe and chosen and ready for whatever came next. Her life had been turned upside down, but somehow she'd ended up exactly where she needed to be. 3 months later, Camila sat in her office at the county building, reviewing case files and preparing for a home visit. Her life had found a new kind of balance, splitting her time between her work and Adrian's world in ways that surprised her with how well they meshed. She'd kept all her conditions, maintaining her independence and her commitment to her kids. But she'd also let Adrian in, let herself experience the kind of relationship she'd never imagined for herself. It wasn't always easy. There were still moments when his business dealings troubled her, when she had to remind herself that she'd chosen to love the whole person, complications and all. But there were also quiet evenings in his apartment, conversations that lasted into the early morning, and the steady presence of someone who understood both her strength and her vulnerabilities. Her phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. "Dinner tonight. There's something I want to discuss with you." She smiled and typed back a quick affirmative. Whatever he wanted to talk about, she was ready. She'd learned that sometimes the most important moments in life came from the most unexpected circumstances, and she was done being afraid of where the journey might lead. As she gathered her files and headed out for her home visit, Camila reflected on how much had changed since that terrifying morning when she'd woken up in a stranger's bed. She'd found strength she didn't know she had, confronted dangers she'd never imagined, and discovered love in the last place she would have looked for it. The case files in her arms represented children depending on her, and the phone in her pocket connected her to a man who'd turned her world upside down. Both were important. Both were part of who she was now. And as she walked out into the October sunshine, Camila Torres felt more alive and complete than she ever had in her carefully planned, predictable life. Sometimes you had to lose your memory to find your future.